Thank you. 1 minute was generous. I was told seconds. You have seconds. My name is Autumn Watson. I'm the only Democratic candidate for Lincoln County Commissioner this year, so I will be on the ballot in November with some of my fellow candidates up here. I would like, if you could, check out my website. It's on Facebook at Autumn Watson for County Commissioner. I would love to speak with any of you. If you have any questions, my cell phone number's on there. You can send me a direct message on Facebook as well. So, thank you.
Any other candidates who are here who would like to say hello? Nope? Okay. Oh, is there another? Where? Who? Oh, yes, okay. Candidate for judge. Hi there. Yes, please. I will give you the microphone.
Okay, great. Thank you. I walked in just in time. My breath. I just drove here from Shelby. I'm Meredith Schiffer, District Court Judge here in Lincoln County for the past 13 years. And prior to that, I practiced law in Lincoln for 10. And I have loved my job. I make a lot of different types of decisions. Do my best to do that. I look people in the eye and listen to them when I'm making their decisions. While I've been campaigning over the past couple of weeks, I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of these candidates, and I want to thank them for their willingness to go into public service. I know what that entails. Some of them have already been doing that, and I appreciate that because it does take a lot of dedication. The other thing I'll say is I'm very proud of the work I've done. Ask anyone that has worked with me in the courthouse in Lincoln County or Cleveland County. I think they'll tell you how passionate I am and committed to the work that I do. And I want to thank you for coming, and I hope I have you ready. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. She is one of, there are 3 seats, 3 judges' seats, district judges' seats for District 27B, which includes Lincoln and Cleveland counties that are up for election this year. She is one of 2 Republican candidates for one of those seats. There is a primary also for the Democrats for one of the other seats, 2 people running there. Now, let's get on with the big show. We have our 8 candidates who are running for county commissioner, and we're going to start on the far end with the current chairman of the county commission and work our way down to this end. And we're going to give each of you, I'm going to suggest 3 minutes, but you may notice that we don't have a timekeeper. I want complete answers to questions, and I want these folks to have a chance to tell you what they want you to hear. And so we're not going to say, oh, yellow light, red light, etc. If they get extremely lengthy, I'll give them that's enough and ask them to wrap it up. But I hope that won't happen. So we'll begin with Mr. Mitchell.
First of all, let me say, well, thank you, Wayne, and thank you to the Cultural Center for putting this on. And a little bit blindsided here, but I might be able to get through this. But I feel like I'm on the Grand Ole Opry or something, maybe called Nazi Squad. But I don't have a cowboy hat on front. I wished I did. So let me say, Carol Mitchell, I think most of you here know me. I've been on the board 16 years now, and bring a lot of experience to the board, and look forward to serving for another 4 years to the board. Let me say a few things about that. I'm not going to give a whole lot of rundown on what boards I sit on or what I've done or what I've been, but I've been a farmer, I was small business and restaurant in upwestern Lincoln County. And we talk about what we do and what we don't, what we haven't done, that kind of thing. I said on one of the most important boards that are in Lincoln County. That's the Board of Commissioners. A board that was elected, I was elected by the people to serve on this board, and I feel like that's what I've done over 16 years. And in my full heart, and I'll stand put my record up against anybody who serves on the Lincoln County Board of Commissioners. Let me say, there's been a lot of challenges, accomplishments. That's what time I've been on the board. We've done a lot of things and a lot of things that we didn't really want to do, but we had to. We had to make tough decisions. I'm a person, I think, that in the past I've had to do that amongst other board members. As you're a board member, you'll find out real quickly that there's certain things that you have to do and make tough decisions on things, and I've been capable to do that. And I think I can continue to do that in the future. We, get a little history and a little current, little future. There's a lot of things that's been accomplished over the years, and I wrote some of those down, and probably some of you maybe don't know, but as far as Lincoln County Hospital, Lincoln County held bed rights to Lincoln County Hospital. At that time, we had to give those bed rights up in order to get the new hospital built. One of the things that Tom Anderson was on the board at that time, that we thought that we needed a doctor's office in West Lincoln. So we negotiated with them and a doctor's office in urgent care in East Lincoln. So that's what we got in the negotiations, giving up the bed rights. We expanded school systems. We built new schools. We built expansions on new schools. Early Industrial Park. All of you know down in East Lincoln where that's at. We accomplished that and created a new industrial park. Expanded East Lincoln Recreation Center. I'm gonna go down a list here. There's a lot of other things maybe that I didn't include in this. New health department, a brand new health department over the old Lincoln Hospital. New senior center, new West Lincoln Park, new community center, remodel the citizen center, process of building a new courthouse, and process of building new buildings for the EMS. Funded mobility study for East Lincoln. New East Lincoln, New West Lincoln Library, and then by the middle of March, that library will be open at East Lincoln. There's a lot of things coming forth. We got the courthouse on the drawings, building a new courthouse, new EMS center, and a lot of things going on. And I want to continue to serve the board and the people of Lincoln County and see that these things come forth. And look forward to doing that. Appreciate everybody's support. We have 3 votes. I'm asking for one of them. Carol Mitchell. Thank you.
Okay, and now we'll go to Robert Avery.
Robert Avery, I run for the county commission. I'm very familiar with business. I worked in all phases of business and trained in all phases of business. I'm very, very familiar with the general statute of North Carolina. Without knowing the general statutes and look into the general statutes in North Carolina, county commission is hard to operate because everything they do up there, they refer to is the general statute to it. If you look in the law right here at the legal library, at the legislature, you'll find out. I encourage everybody, if any issue come up on anything, they go to the legislative library, legal library downstairs, legislature. Now, all laws is covered everything in North Carolina. I want to tell you about that. You have to work your way through the general statute. And that's what I'm familiar with. Thank you.
Kathy Davis.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Davis. I am the director of the Lincoln Cultural Center and also the current chair of the Lincoln County Board of Education. I'm not going to stand here and tell you that I am the best candidate for county commissioner, but I hope that after this evening and after you have read things that have been made available to you in various news outlets and on my Facebook page, that you will decide that I am worthy of one of those votes. I have been at work in this community for my entire adult life through church and various organizations. I'm proud to have been a founding member of Hesed House of Hope, a homeless shelter for men, women, and children here in Lincoln County. I've served in various boards in various capacities, including the Coalition Against Child Abuse, the YMCA of Lincoln County, Communities and Schools, the Arts Council, the Theater Guild. I have been on the planning board for 4 years. And I think that all of those, including the fact that I live and play here, make me qualified to have a various set of knowledge about my community that benefit the work of the county commission. I learned a lot as a planning board member about the entire community. And from that, I have developed the fact that I truly believe that my entire community matters. On the school board, I've had the privilege of working with some phenomenal board members, and I do not take credit for anything that our board or as our educational system has done, but I'm proud to be a part of that work. Lincoln County Schools currently ranks 11 in the state of North Carolina out of 150 15 school systems, and I think that is something that we're all very proud of. And I give kudos to my fellow board member Heather Ryan, who's sitting in the audience as well. I think you'll learn a little bit more about me as we continue through the night, but that's my introduction, and thank you again for being here.
And we apologize that we could not have his twin brother George here, but now, I guess I should explain that. The Elba forum was put up online on YouTube, and they mislabeled Glenn Fiskus as George Fiskus. His name is Glenn. It will appear on the ballot that way. Glenn Fiskus, your turn, sir.
Well, thank you very much. I just love coming to things like this. We get to talk to real people and have an exchange of ideas and a back and forth, and it's serious matters, but we still have to maintain a sense of humor, otherwise we'd be in La La Land. My background is I have a chemical engineering degree, an MBA, professional engineering license. I have a broker's real estate license, and I've taken a lot of courses. So I've got an educational background, but my real contribution to this whole thing is what I've learned in life since that. But the reason that you want to vote for me is because I'm the only person on this panel here that's running for county commissioner that doesn't have another agenda. My agenda is to do what you people, we people of Lincoln County need to have done. Now, my fellow candidates here, if you read their literature and you hear their testimonials, you know that they have a separate agenda that they're pushing. And I think you'll see this as we all speak. My big item that's happening to Lincoln County is the overdevelopment. We have too much development, too many cars, and we're going to have a giant bill to pay for the super infrastructure to support that. The other items, the courthouse has to be funded, the drugs have to be fought. We all know what the issues are. We got to come up with some solutions that solve those for your benefit, not for our benefit. And as a commissioner, I'm not going to take a salary. I don't need a salary, and that's going to be given to some charity here in Lincoln County. And I will turn it over to the next person.
And next is Anita McCall, who is on the commission currently. Ms. McCall.
Hi, my name is Anita McCall. I am a current commissioner. I've been on the board for 4 years. My background is I did AutoCAD drawings, both professional drawings where they were final as well as proposal drawings. I did mechanical, electrical, and civil geological. If you can draw anything. And I never got my PE. I worked underneath a PE. And I didn't actually finish my degree like him. I got to the very end of my degree and actually didn't get finished, but by that time I was making $81,000, so I didn't finish it. Well, the truth is, I did DataCAD, VersaCAD, IBM CAD, CATIA, DDSC, and I wrote software to interface with AutoCAD to extract bill of materials and parent-child relationships for companies, and actually went to Germany and taught what I had done for a company in Charlotte, a couple companies that one of them was American Trussler, and then when I came back, I ended up doing all the electrical for gas turbines for offshore oil rigs. Anyway, in the last 7 years, I did civil geological drawings, which was segmental retaining wall drawings. My point is, if you can draw and you're used to seeing what the drawings look like and what the general notes are, then that is something that you're accustomed to. I own a seat of AutoCAD, but I don't do it anymore. The only thing that I love doing now is serving the public. I was elected in 2016, and I work it like a full-time job. I absolutely love serving people. A lot of things that Carol mentioned that we've done as a board, we've been able to do with less money. as you all know, our taxes was .611 on the 100, and with our reevaluation, we were able, our reevaluation in Lincoln County is every 4 years. Some counties do it every 8 years, which really hurts, but every 4 years is ours. We were able to lower our tax rate to .599. And Carol mentioned some of the things that we were able to do. He mentioned the new PSAP 911 center. We're also building an EMS, EM/FM backup PSAP. A PSAP stands for Public Safety Answering Point Location, and we're in the discussions now of where it is that we'll put that. And that'll have a whole lot of the equipment that will reside there. A lot of other things that we have done, Carol mentioned. The senior services building, that building is over right by the drugstore, you know what I'm talking about? That building already had a portico so that the seniors could drive underneath it, automatic opening doors. We got that building for $42 a square foot. So we were able to put all the money into the renovations. And I don't know if you've been able to go over there, but it's absolutely gorgeous. Anyway, I would love to serve you in the next 4 years. Serving people is my heart, and I'll tell you more about me later on.
And next is Martin Oakes. Martin served on the commission for 4 years, but did not run 2 years ago, so he's back running this time around, Mr. Oakes.
Thank you. My background is I'm an engineer. I was trained as an electrical engineer, did electronics, computer software for a long time. 20 years before I retired in 2009, I did business modeling. I built models for large corporations, $1 million in sales, and that required me to take apart their financials and compare those to their operational results in order to build detailed models of how their operations ran. And so they could look at that model and poke at it and say, well, what if we dropped this product? Or what if we source this product from the West Coast and not the East Coast? Those kinds of decisions led them to make more money. Typically, we could get their profit percentage up a couple points at a time. The point of that is that I'm a financial analyst. I know how to take apart financial books. And while I was on the commission, I was pretty much the only commissioner who ever asked detailed questions of the finance director. When I first got elected, that was 6 years ago, we were thrown into a revaluation, just like the last two commissioners were, and we had to come up with a tax rate. We managed to get a revenue-neutral tax rate. Revenue-neutral means that on average, taxpayers pay the same amount of money. So very few people in the county paid more taxes that year. Joe Kaiser gave me a hard time once because his taxes went up $3. But then he corrected himself a month later and said it was down $1. The point is, the tax rate is not what's important. It's how big a check you write. And you all wrote bigger checks this last time around. And I would like to be able to analyze that and try and reduce that somewhat. And that's my role on the county commission for the last 4 years. And I think I did that fairly well. I'd like to do it again. Thank you.
And the next gentleman lives about as far west as 10 feet further, and you're in Burke County, I think. George Maw.
Thank you, Mr. Howard, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for taking time out of your busy day to come up here and listen to what the people on this board have to say. First of all, I'd like to say I'm honored to be representing with all the people sitting here, because every one of these people, in my opinion, has Lincoln County at heart. And I don't think anyone up here has a hidden agenda or any other objective other than improving Lincoln County. I'll give you a couple little tidbits of information about myself. I'm a lifetime resident of Lincoln County, 5th generation. My family was here before the United States was established, and this was the territory of Tryon. Both my grandmother's mother were a teacher. Both my grandfathers ran general stores, farmed, had post offices. Grandpa Mull was a county commissioner in 1928 when they built 27 from Pumpkin Center to Toluca. He also was a magistrate and the head of the Mason Lodge up in Northbrook. I went to West Lincoln High School. I then proceeded to Lenore Ryan University and studied business administration and psychology. After that, I went to Catawba Valley and got 2 degrees in textile technologies and entered the textile manufacturing business and held a management level job for 30 years. At that point, my parents' health began to fail, and I assumed the role of a family caregiver. I became qualified as a Veterans Administration caregiver. I'm a federally licensed Veterans Administration fiduciary for the last 20 years. I undergo a federal audit every year, and I manage a veteran's pension. I have about 7 years in county level government, 2 years with steering committee for planning and zoning, and 5 years on the Board of Adjustment, which is a quasi-judicial board that hears zoning issues concerning variances and special use permits. And I have attended multiple educational opportunities at University of North Carolina School of Government, and also the Catawba Valley Council of Government. I'm doing this because I see so many of our seniors, and particularly our veterans, that tend to fall through the cracks in our society. The attitude of a lot of the younger generations has gotten so now that just stuff mom and dad, grandma and grandpa and the rest home and forget about them. Our lives are more important than theirs, and we wouldn't be standing here in the place we are without contribution of hard work, love, and dedication that our parents and grandparents put into us. And if I do get elected, I will be a voice and a representative and a strong advocate for this segment of our population. I'm a member of Laurel Hill United Methodist Church. Somebody sent me an email earlier wanting me to answer some questions about where I stood on some issues. I'm an NRA member. I'm a supporter of the U.S. Constitution. I was very proud of our Board of County Commissioners when they passed our 2A sanctuary resolution. I'm also very proud of the commissioners for their recent decision on building a new courthouse. We're fortunate here in Lincoln County that the people in government and the people you elect to represent you do have the county in their heart and their best interest. And I think Lincoln County is a unique and special place. It concerns me a lot. It seems the eastern end of the county, there seems to be a big imbalance in Lincoln County, that it's overdeveloped and it's lacking basic infrastructure that should have been, rather than the cart in front of the horse, the horse should have been in front of the cart. We should have had these things in place prior to letting what I perceive as a tidal wave coming out of Mecklenburg and Iredell County that are just washing over us and using big developer money to just kind of get their way. I think we ought to be a little bit more restrictive on that. Lincoln County has a rich historical and cultural history that absolutely, in my opinion, has to be preserved. I'm also very proud of the way our current Board of Commissioners manages our current $106 million budget. You know, the most important and the #1 expenditure on our budget is education. Our children are the most valuable resource we have in our community, and providing them with a good foundation and a good education, to me, is one of the most important things there is.
And we'll get into some of those other issues as we continue. Thank you, Mr. Long.
Thank you, Mr. Howard.
And Tim, you got to go last but not least.
Should I take that as a compliment or not? I'm Tim Holder. Appreciate you guys being here tonight. Wayne, thank you for doing this. A little bit about me. I've spent my career in the energy industry industry, more specifically focused on economic development. I think what you'll hear from me tonight is, I believe that skill set that I bring from my professional career is something that is much needed on this board. I think it can help us as a county to move forward, develop strategic vision on what we need and what we want for the county. My campaign's based on really three key principal ideas. It's economic development. As we continue to drive growth into the county, we can lower the tax base, increase the tax base and offset taxes for our individual citizens. I think that's important that we continue to focus on that. Cliff, I see you back there. You've done a great job. Keep doing the same job. Secondly, infrastructure. Our water and sewer system needs continued expansion throughout the county. We've got to keep that out in front of the business that's coming. If we don't, we'll be turning businesses away. And thirdly, transportation. You guys are going to hear it, I'm sure, 100 times tonight. Transportation's a big issue, very specifically, obviously, in the eastern end of the county where I live and see. We've got to have a voice. We've got to push DOT. We've got to stay in front of these guys and make a concerted effort to get the roads improved. That may take, hounding these guys to the point that they can't stand us anymore, but that's what we've got to do, and that's what I'm here to do for you. Outside of that, lifelong native of Lincoln County, wife, got 2 kids in the public school system, graduate of UNC Chapel Hill and UNC Charlotte with an MBA in energy engineering. So thank you, appreciate your support. If you have more questions, feel free to ask or visit my website, www.timwholder.com.
Thank you, Mr. Holder. Now, I'm going to ask some questions, and they will be pointed questions. If, as I ask them of each of these commissioner candidates, if another candidate has something they'd like to say on that subject, please raise your hand, and we'll try to come to you afterward to follow up, possibly to rebut if you disagree, or to add something to it if you agree. If anybody in the audience has something that you'd like to know an answer, a question you'd like to ask of these folks, please just write it down on a piece of paper. If you need one, I'll give you one. And in turn, I will pose your questions to these candidates as well. So let's begin. I'm going to start with Ms. Davis, who is the current chair of the Lincoln County Board of Education School Board.
Yes.
It is my understanding that the schools are going to request an increase in their budget when they meet with county commissioners Thursday evening in the joint session of over $100,000 more than what the schools got from the county during the current fiscal year. Yet your enrollment in Lincoln County schools is static or possibly declining. How do you justify that added burden on taxpayers?
Well, Wayne, your information is good. We are asking for an increase. However, let me explain that budget process to you, and it might be of interest to some of the audience members. When we hire the superintendent, as we did, we trust her to collect information from her staff, administrative and the principals, and those who are in specific areas, and all of them work together to culminate a budget that they believe best serves the children that are in our district. Now, it's no secret that the EC population is growing in our school system. Right now, we have a school system that has about 14% of our students that qualify as EC. Those classrooms are harder to run and more expensive because there are more compliance measures and such that are involved. You'll see a lot of our budget request revolves around that, therapeutic behavior and some other things, as well as some ISS coordinators for our elementary schools. But let me go back to that first statement about that culmination. So as board members, we've looked at all of that, and we did call out some of the requests, and it is our hope that when we meet with the commissioners, some of them, such as Bud Cecina, I think Bud is here. Bud has an extensive background in education, as he was an employee at CMS. A few years ago, we had a discussion about school nurses, and Rich Permenter pointed out that we were behind the state average number of school nurses, and as a result, we have hired more school nurses. Last year, in that conversation, some of our budget conversations, we realized that we needed at least one additional school social worker. So this is not just a request, this is a conversation that we felt we need to have with the commissioners to show what the needs are based on the request from the administration and our superintendent. And once they give us a final number, which we know that they can't fill our full request because we don't have a large money tree up there on the courthouse lawn. However, we know that we are greatly appreciative, and they know that we're greatly appreciative of every dime that we get. Once we get that, we'll go back to the table and reassign priorities and finalize that budget.
Thank you. Mr. Oakes, you wanted to comment on this?
Yeah, you stated in the beginning that the schools were asking for $100,000 more. Is that the right number? That doesn't sound like much.
Well, that was a figure that I was given, but I'm actually told it's a little more than that.
Well, $100,000 out of $25 million that we send to the schools is not much.
It's not. The baseline budget last year was a little over 19 million, and the request this year is 23 million.
Oh, so it's $4 million more.
Yeah.
Oh, makes a big difference.
He was generous, wasn't he?
Yeah. Okay, that does make a difference.
I did not have it from an official source, so I wasn't going to use the higher figure based on hearsay. And you wish to comment?
Currently, the school board's getting 32% of our budget at the county, and their enrollment has gone down. As you remember, we passed a referendum that they got the quarter-cent sales tax as well. Now, one thing that our current county commission board has changed just recently, I'm going to say within this year, is instead of just giving the money, now we require receipts from the school board to make sure that the money's spent for what it was being asked for. And so that's something that the board has changed, and I think that that was probably a good idea.
Mr. Mitchell?
Let me say one thing about the schools, and I have the numbers here before me tonight. And 2010, the operating budget for schools was $17,044,729. 2020 is $19,668,705. So we talking about a little over $2 million in 10 years. Does that really sound like a significant increase in money when what schools provide and what they do, technology? Lincoln County's been lagging behind the technology in schools, and over the years we've tried to help improve that as county commissioners. I think Bud and Rich Permenter's in the audience, and they understand that we've tried to do that. So from what I see here in the numbers, which is accurate, is $2 million in 10 years. Let me say, I have a school system needs to be funded adequately so we can make the kids of Lincoln County premier students when they go forth out to try to extend their education. Money sometimes cannot buy that. But we hopefully that with the school board that they are very careful with the money which is spent for and make sure that we get every dollar for our buck. One other thing that bothers me a lot of times is sometimes the money maybe don't seem like it gets to the trenches. Trenches being the classroom. The teachers, the ones in the trenches actually teaching the students. And I get teachers come to me periodically, I don't know why I can't get a pack of paper. I don't know how many of y'all have heard that before, but that's a problem that I don't exactly understand, and maybe that can come forth and we go to budget and actually got a meeting Thursday night, Kathy, with the school board. They got to present the budget, we're going to look at it, and then we're going to go from there. But, significantly increasing the school budget in 10 year, $2 million for the actual operating cost. I know $2 million
$2 million, but increase in expense of other things that it takes in day-to-day operations. Maybe not that much, but we'll look at the school budget and we'll go forth from here.
Mr. Oaks?
Sorry, I didn't realize it was $4 million until just now. So a $2 million increase over 10 years is not particularly bad. There are school issues that have to be addressed. One of the issues here is that when you have charter schools tend to suck off the best students and leave behind people who have exceptional needs and more handling, more problems. And often kids are kicked back out of charter school back to the public school and causes basically the public schools to have a disproportionately higher number of people who need better services. At the same time, a $4 million increase needs to be thoroughly analyzed into where it's going. The school budget is not the $19 or $17 million that you hear. That's just the county portion of the operating money. The county also funds the bonds to pay off the school buildings. That's another $10 or $12 million going down because we're finished construction pretty much. And the school system itself gets over $110, $120 million from the state and the feds. So their overall budget is huge. And so if they need $4 million more, you'd wonder why we couldn't get some more of that from the state or the federal government. And so it needs a lot more look at in terms of that $4 million, I believe.
Okay, Mr. Fiskus, I'm going to give you the last comment on this subject, and then we'll move to something else.
Okay. My other half taught school for 37 years, so I've heard and I respect the fact of what it is to be a school teacher, and I support that. But the comments here have talked about the budget. It's a $106 million budget, or whatever it is, and I have brought up the concept of sunshine on how our money is spent. We all know how much our taxes are, our real estate tax. You can go to GIS and you know how much hers is, and everybody's is. But the real thing is we have no real financial accounting. We need to have a balance sheet, an income statement, and a cash flow to know where all this money's going. Whenever you go to the supermarket and you buy your list of stuff, 2 cans of soup, $2. It's right there. You know exactly how much money you spent and what you spent it on. But whenever you buy your government services and what your taxes are, you have no idea where that money's going. Right? You're telling me that I can go somewhere on the county and see exactly where every dollar has gone?
Can I, as a school board, as a chairman of the board of commissioners, can I answer that?
Yeah.
Well, believe me, Mr. Fiskus,
Yeah.
we provide that to you when you want it. We'll get it to you, we got that, and you can get it. Have you requested it?
No, I'm talking about being able to sit down at my
Have
computer.
you requested this, I'll get it for you. And you
No,
can read it
I don't want you to get it for me. I want to be able to sit down at my computer and see where the money is. That's all I'm asking for. Everybody I know, you guys have this opinion, but the people that I'm dealing with, say, I have no idea where that money's going.
We'll make
That's
it
all I want to
clear.
do is just see it, that's all. And obviously from the reaction that I'm getting there, there's something going on we don't know about.
Okay, all right, we're going to move on to another subject. This question comes from the audience, and frankly, I don't understand it, nor do I know the answer to it. So I don't know who to ask, so just take it if you will, whomever. What does EC mean? That's what I was given to ask. What does EC mean?
Exceptional.
Oh, it's, okay, all right, okay, maybe that was mentioned in something else, okay. I wasn't aware. Okay, by the way, if you do have questions, by all means, just write them down, bring them over to me, and I'll be glad to ask them. Okay, we're gonna.
That's what we're here for. We want to hear your questions.
Yes. Now, here's a question that I'm going to pose first to Mr. Oaks, but of course others can comment on it too. We did not hear anything about this down at the Elba event, and I'm a little surprised because it's a half-mile down the road from where the Elba event was held at Unity Church. There is a proposal to have a public beach at Beatty's Ford Park. Now, the reason I'm going to ask Mr. Oates about it is because in 2016, a lot of people there that night when we had a meeting, a public meeting at East Lincoln Community Center a while back, seemed very surprised that this had suddenly come up. They didn't know anything about it before. I pointed out that night that we, the Lincoln Herald, had run an article about it when Duke Power, Duke Energy had gotten the approval for their recreation plan from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission back in 2018. Not only that, but we'd also covered, and this is where my information of that originally came from, I checked my notes and the information on it to be sure. In July of 2016, Mr. Oates, you made the motion to approve the Duke Energy plan. You did say, before you did, because it had been presented that evening by the Recreation Director, that you felt like we don't have any choice. What's the situation on the Beatty's Ford Park Beach?
Well, let's go back to a little history. First of all, the concept of having a beach and Duke presented to the county commissioners was actually voted on in 2006. And at that point, the county commissioners voted in favor. There were a bunch of people in East Lincoln who were pushing for that idea and they liked it. So that's when Duke said, okay, we're going to build a beach, and they went ahead. When we had the meeting where you quoted me as saying we had no choice, what we were actually voting on was not approving Duke's doing it, but Duke came forward and said, here's the plan we're going to give to the Energy Commission, and here are all the county optional facilities where we think they're going to go, and you need to say yes or no to them, because once they're in this plan, they can't be changed. So what we were approving was the location of the kiosk for this and the shelter for that. That was not an approval of the whole beach idea. The whole beach idea was approved in 2006, way back. And so my understanding recently is that Duke has agreed to punt and hold off doing the beach for a year. But they're telling us that their license is dependent on their doing the beach by X, which I think is 2 years out. And so we're going to be stuck with potentially a repeat of the Ramsey Creek fiasco. And so in talking about it, we have a road there that is poor, Unity Church Road. The right-of-way is not owned by DOT. DOT runs that road with easements from the landowners on each side, which means to do any serious amount of work, DOT or the county or somebody's going to have to spend $3-5 million buying the land. And I don't see that happening particularly well. So I'm not quite sure what the county commission is going to do. My default position is if it turns out into a real fiasco, we'll stop maintaining it. They're telling us that we would have to spend $200,000 a year putting new sand on that beach because it'll wash away. If we stop putting new sand up there, it'll go back to being rocks. It won't be an attraction. The traffic problem will solve itself. That's kind of a draconian solution. But that's what you do if it becomes really, really serious. Halfway between that, other than fixing the road, it's going to be a disaster, I think.
Okay.
I'd like to be able to cancel it, but we apparently don't have that option.
You are correct that it was originally planned in 2006. It actually wasn't, the plan wasn't fully put together until 2008. It was not approved by the FERC until 2018 was when the FERC approved it. Ms. McCall, you...
Okay, you all understand, you probably already know this. If I'm telling you something you already know, forgive me. You know, Duke Power uses Lake Norman to create electricity. Duke Power got the permission, of course, from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is called FERC. FERC and the stakeholders are the ones who give permission to Duke to use the lake to create power. The stakeholders include other people as well as Lincoln County as a stakeholder. All right? Lincoln County knows that Unity Church Road is one way in and one way out. And that's a dangerous intersection right off of Business 16. You all know that. There's no way down there to turn around. And, you know, they've tried to acquire land on the way down. It's just a mess. So the sitting commissioners, we got together with Duke, and some of you may have been there, and we asked them to postpone it. And they weren't real happy about it, but we asked them to postpone it for a year to 2 years. We asked them to go back to the stakeholders and to also speak with FERC. And we had our county manager as well as assistant county manager and some other folks speak with FERC. We put together a committee which includes 2 of our commissioners. One of them is Milton Sigmund, the other one is Bud Cecina. Now again, Mr. Cecina, or Commissioner Cecina's background's in safety and policing, and Mr. Sigmund was a businessman, very, very good with money. Okay, so those 2 gentlemen are going to sit on this committee, the steering committee, as well as there'll be NCDOT people there and Duke Energy folks will be there. The first thing that we're asking Duke to go back to the stakeholders, postpone it for a year, as I said. Secondly, if we absolutely are required to do the beach, we have a secondary plan we're going to ask that the committee work on an operational plan if we're forced to do it with some limitations, perhaps different things that would make us safer, cost us less money, and that's what this committee is going to do. And their first meeting is supposed to be in March. I just want to let you know that.
I think that we all realize that there's at least one death every year on Lake Norman. And I would venture that alcohol was involved in most of those situations. If you're out there on the 4th of July on the lake, it's almost as dangerous as making a left turn on the Route 16. To suffer your life. So the concept of having a beach down Unity Church Road and having a bunch of drinking going on down there, that's asking for a problem. The highway doesn't have the space, and a bunch of drunk teenagers, we're going to have another death.
I might note that based on current county policy, drinking would not be legally allowed at the beach. I can't say it won't occur, but it would not be legally allowed. Mr. Mitchell?
Pretty much you can guarantee there's going to be drinking.
Mr. Mitchell?
Correct.
Mr. Yeah, hello. Mr. Fiskus, sorted out teenagers. What about the adults? They drink too. Don't forget that. Okay, but you seen the teenagers out there. Anyway, let's go on about the beach.
I know where it is.
I know where it's at. I've been there too, so let me go on what I'm going to say. Commissioner McCall's exactly right what's going on, what we've done at the beach. It's something that's very much of a safety issue. On Unity Church Road, you say they have a major wreck. There's no other way to access to that beach, if it becomes a beach, except going down Unity Church Road. So you could be in some kind of emergency at the beach or even at the park that's there now. It's very much of an issue on safety issue. Road narrow. It's something that we hope that FERC comes back and we can possibly get them to provide something else besides the beach, because it will not be nothing but a place for entertainment of some sort. But the commissioner's doing all we can to deal with this, and hopefully the only burden of cost of keeping that beach up, maybe lifeguards, liability. There's a lot of issues there that will be a factor in that beach, and hopefully we can do something to help alleviate part of that problem.
Okay, we're going to move on to another subject also involved. There is a significant proposal for a combination of residential and industrial and commercial at the county line. The residential would primarily be in Gaston County. The commercial and industrial would be in Lincoln County. It's called the River Bend Project. It will be coming up for public hearings, I'm told, sometime soon. It has not yet been scheduled in either Lincoln or Gaston County for public hearings on the proposal. But it has been talked about in closed sessions for at least a year, possibly a little more. I'm going to Mr. Holder on this one. You talked about economic development. Would you care to comment on the Riverbend project?
Sure. I've been pretty intimately involved in that project since it was, I think Woodcock is what they originally may have called that.
That was the original.
So, that was during my term on LEDA. Obviously, on economic development, we were trying to find some funding to potentially help offset some of the costs that were there. There's some zero interest USDA loans that I've shared with Cliff that I think could help out that project. The biggest thing out there, I think, it's really how do you create this interlocal agreement between Mount Poly or Gaston County and Lincoln County to develop a structure that can sustain the infrastructure that needs to be put in there. There's obviously a lot of needs from a water and sewer standpoint out there. When you put that many houses out there on the Gaston County side, that's something that they're going to have to deal with. Really, the biggest issue I really see out there, aside from trying to develop a way to fund that, is traffic. I mean, we all know the new 16 bypass out there, we've had a number of issues with both the existing crossings, the Optimus and the St. James. So I guess in my opinion, Wayne, it's, you know, you've got to come up with a plan around transportation out there. The last thing we want is 25 semis turning right every day out of that business park out there. But again, it's about picking the smart locations for growth. It's about strategically deciding what we need to do and how we develop that in such a manner that at the end of the day, it doesn't impact negatively the citizens who live out there.
Mr. Oaks?
Currently on the Lincoln Economic Development Board, so I know a lot about this project. I'm not sure how much detail I can go into. But as a general approach, what we have there, this is at the county line. If you've been down Route 60, you can see two little side roads right at the county line. DOT put those in for the benefit of this development, and the development sort of sits right on top of that, half on one side, half on the other. The plan essentially calls for industrial / business development on our side of the county line and a little bit on Gaston County side of the line, and then further south in Gaston County, a fairly sizable housing development. And that's the current proposal. The county manager has worked very hard with LEDA and the developer to come up with a plan. You may know that there's no sewer and water in that area. The current plan calls for the county to supply the water, which has to be a new main line from 73 and Business 16 down to that park. And the developer will basically pay for that over 10 to 15 years. And my understanding is they give us a first lien on the property so that the county will not be in pocket. And a similar arrangement is being talked about for the sewer line, which would have to start down in Gaston County because Mount Holly doesn't have adequate sewer out there, and come back to our plant up at Plant Road. So it's under reasonable control. The benefit to the county is that we have a space there for 1.5 million square feet of industrial park. That's a huge number. We could put some very large economic development things in there and get some serious taxes from it. And it'll take 5 or 10 years to develop because the first building, not having sewer initially, is basically going to be a big warehouse. And so that will not generate traffic itself. Later on, it'll generate traffic. Most of the traffic goes down Route 16, generally heading towards Charlotte. So I don't think it's a problem for us so much. Another part of the issue we're trying to negotiate is to have the industrial park jointly owned by us and Gaston County so that we can have Gaston County's better economic tier, which affects economic development, incentives from the state and those kinds of things, as opposed to our tier, which is much less favorable. So we get some benefits to attracting businesses to that. And that location is also, if you measure from downtown Charlotte, one of 2 or 3 places where you could put 1.5 million square feet of property. So it's a really good place. And I think it would really help the county to get that done.
All right, a little more background to this story. One of the first comments I got as a candidate was concerning that area. And his story was that that area had been changed from a residential area by some magic wand being waved, and it was turned into an industrial area. He lives down there, and already the construction has started, and there's runoff problems, there's mud down there, and so the folk aren't too happy about what's going on down there. So I think we need to hear their side of the story. I'm all in favor of development, and if you look at the Blum building down there, we have a 14-story building in Lincoln County. They have put up a building, 14 stories, and they're a good citizen. They have a lot of employees, they help out the county with their contributions, and I think we have to have some sensitivity to the people that live down there. They're not too happy.
Yeah, let's go to Mr. Mitchell.
Let's go ahead and, it's amazing what people think they know. And they don't know. Assumption is the root of all evil. But anyway, let's start way on back.
Is that aimed at me?
Yes. Yes. Let's start back. When this land first was being talked about, sold, whatever, the landowner come to Lincoln County and wanting to sell to Lincoln County and Lincoln County back. I rode all over the property. Rode over the property and looked at it, but that did not come to the happening. Now, Woodcock River Bend, it is in negotiation with developers. It's a very large tract of land that I think that is one of the last big tracts of land in that area that would be a primary for homes or industrial. Because there's not much of that land, those big tracts left that's accessible and close to Charlotte. We'll need to develop an agreement with Gaston County, which years back we have already, it's probably maybe been 10 years ago, we met the Gaston County Commissioners and it didn't go well. They did not want to play ball, lacking for a better term. The property will have to go through a rezoning. Rezoning has not happened. Okay? There's still early discussions, and there's a lot of things that I'm privy to, and Commissioner McCall and the rest of the commissioners privy to that cannot be discussed at this time. It's a client attorney privilege, and a lot of great other details cannot be discussed at this time. Now, where are we at on this project?
This question comes from the audience. Is there any planning, and I'll take whoever wants to go first on, is there any planning currently for public transportation in this community as it grows? Public transportation. Mr. Rhodes.
Let me address how public transportation works right now. Lincoln Transport, the little buses you see running around, are not funded by the county. They are funded entirely with state money. In fact, the county makes a little bit of money out of that because we rent them the building that the buses run out of. The county is on the hook for 10% of the cost of a new bus, and that's roughly the extent of the county's financial involvement. The Department of Transportation decides what the routes are and where they go. And I don't know that we can have any impact on that short of getting a change in the law in the General Assembly.
All right, Mr. Mall, you made a statement in your opening remarks that you were very interested in senior citizens and their needs and so forth. What specifically do you propose to do as a county commissioner that is not already being done for Lincoln County senior citizens?
Well, Mr. Howard, two things. First of all, you will never hear me attack another candidate or act in any other way than with old Southern hospitality and etiquette. I feel that we are mature adults up here and need to conduct ourselves with proper decorum. To address the question, as I stated earlier, our commissioners do an exceptional job allocating our tax dollars into the designated areas. The recent addition of the new senior center, and if you haven't seen it, is amazing. It is absolutely amazing. I do see seniors that, for one reason or another, do not have access to as much information as to the resources that are available. Everybody gets directed to the Department of Health and Human Services, or DSS. There are many other options available. I'll briefly go over one of these. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has several programs to assist low-income seniors. One, if a household in Lincoln County is under $32,000, you can get a very low interest rate on a housing loan. The second is for home improvement. I have a neighbor that applied to the USDA, and their threshold was under $32,000. They received a $10,000 grant. They lived in an older farmhouse, and they were able to put all new double-pane windows and totally insulate their house, and it was a grant. Absolutely no repayment required whatsoever. There are just a lot of little things. The Older American Act that Lyndon B. Johnson signed into law in 1963 is federal money, grant monies, that is designed to aid seniors. And nobody speaks of it or hardly knows about it. We are fortunate at the Senior Center that Miss Becky Putnam has been in place all these years, because she's very well aware of this program and has those that can get to her and seeking help can find these things. I would just like to make it more publicly accessible, because, you know, Lincoln County is primarily rural. We have a big population down east and here in town, and the folks in the rural area just don't necessarily have access to this knowledge. And as a county commissioner, I would try to find avenues to address this, because being in the role of a family caregiver and a VA caregiver for 20 years, I have seen too many of our seniors, parents, and grandparents slip through the cracks and not necessarily utilize taxpayer dollars to get this information out there, but further enhance services like the Senior Services Center and the Veterans Administration Center, Mr. Alex Patton runs.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'm going now to.
Well, he made some comments about me, and I found him to be a very gentlemanly man. I have no question about his standards and character, but I think he has to review some of his facts and some of his policy. That's all the point I was making.
Okay, Mr. Avery, you have proposed at multiple county commissioners' meetings in the public comments section about the possibility of Lincoln County going to a district representation for the county commission. How would that be achieved, considering that the populations of the various townships are nowhere near equal? There are very few people living in the westernmost townships by comparison to Catawba Springs Township down on Lake Norman. I will also note that Lincoln County did have a vote on this in 2010, and it was turned down. How would you justify going to that again?
Well, everyone here in the county needs to be represented. Now, everybody has problems in this county, and everybody has been to the county commission with problems. Down east, you got traffic problems, crowding, and there were other things going on. But now the reason I'm districting, I'm wanting districting, you have a voice on the county commission. And the only way I can see here about other ways of doing it, if each one get a district and address the issues in that district. That's gonna be about the only way you're gonna resolve a lot of these issues right here. Before the districting is, you're gonna have it within 10%. That's state law on it and federal law. But now we've got the school district already in districting in it. So we can go ahead and look at the school district and redistrict by what else has been districted. We have got our part districts we voted on separate. The reason I brought this up, we need to have a resolution for a special election again, and that each district vote that be represented on the county commission But first of all, we'd have to work out a districting process. Now, a lot of people thinking like, well, I'm gonna be left out and this is gonna be left out. But we're gonna have to get within 10% of this district. But the way I feel like it is, a lot of people out here needs a voice in here, and they got a lot of issues out here, including in schools and other issues that you hear tonight here talking about. But the only reason I'm going to districting because of the problems it is creating right here without districting. There's a lot of people that's left out of no water in the western end. There's a lot of people need more water for industrial use in the eastern end. But the eastern end right down here is the way it is now, the traffic issue y'all got. I hear them that keep talking about development, economic development is. If you look at the Fortune 100 or 200 or 300 or on down to the 50 corporations, they look at areas and great impact on it. If you want big business come in that creates a lot of revenue and creates a lot of jobs, you're gonna have to look close at the areas. And we have got a lot of vacant areas here that the big Fortune, say 100 we got, big companies will look at. But that's the reason I wanted to look at the district, and because we can break each district up and go to looking at it, and you'll have a voice in on it. Well, like the traffic issues down east, you'll have a voice in on it. But thank you.
Okay, anybody else care to comment on district representation? Okay, then we will move on. Mr. Holder, you talked about economic growth and development. What, if anything, that is not already being done, would you propose to do or change that would possibly bring more industrial or business growth into Lincoln County?
I think if you're speaking specifically around industrial or business itself, we've got to develop areas or regions that we believe that development fits in. It can't be shoehorned into, a complex on the side of bypass 16 just because we think it works. It's about developing areas where it makes sense. You look at the counties around us that have developed business parks. You look at Catawba, you look at Mecklenburg. It takes some strategic vision around where we believe these business parks should go, where we believe this development should happen. And it's about designing what you expect the future of that area to look like. So I think, one of the things that I see us doing is really looking at some small area studies, some small impact area studies. Maybe going to folks like the Urban Land Institute, who did a great job in other counties across the U.S. of planning out future development. So where do you put the buffers between where residents are, where commercial exists, and where business goes? It really takes some strategic foresight there. So as to give you the exact answer, Wayne, as to where it needs to go, I don't know that we necessarily know all the answers. I think what I would see us doing as a county is putting forth a concerted effort to really design what that looks like and take input from the citizens and create some kind of long-range strategic vision of where we anticipate more business and where we want residential to really be and where that boundary lies.
Okay, Ms. McCall?
I'll speak a little bit about our Unified Development Ordinance that we currently have, as well as our land use plan. I didn't mention, I was on Planning and Zoning and Board of Adjustments for 6 years, as well as, my background where I had to know every state, every county, every municipality that I was doing drawings in and all the requirements therein. Lincoln County, I vote for us in Raleigh, and I have for the past 4 years that I've been your commissioner. The county commission has allowed me to go to Raleigh and vote for us, as well as to DC, where we have a vote nationally. We go to the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. That's where we have one vote. And at the nation level, we have 2 votes, which is National Association of Counties. Now, at the nation level, I am on 2 steering committees. One's for economic development and is presidential committees that I was appointed to. The other is one's economic development, the other one's international economic development. Lincoln County is one of the very highest spoken counties because of our economic development team. I was in a meeting in DC where there was probably 300 people in the room, and they kept talking about Lincoln County, Lincoln County, Lincoln County, over and over and over. And they spoke about all of the international businesses that we have here. And I don't know if you know it or not, guys, but you know, we've got 2 business parks. We've got Airlie Business Park, and then we've got Lincoln Business Park. We've got companies from Austria, we've got Canada, Germany, Japan, China, Israel, Belgium, and even more than that. And as I say, in the room, they kept talking about that and how Lincoln County had done such an excellent job. And I texted our economic development director and told him, wow, you wouldn't believe it. They're talking about us. Turns out the president of the committee had visited here in Lincoln County from Florida and had visited Bloom and Wireway Husky to see how we had done it here, which is a big deal, and I really appreciate what Lita has done. So just letting you know, that is our business economic development.
Okay, Ms. Davis?
I mean, I think that there has to be a concerted effort for intentional planning. More work, unfortunately, I'll put this on the planning board and the planning department to create overlay districts, work on business nodes. But to Tim's point, it's something that's we're gonna have to be proactive about and not reactive. And I think in the past, because of the way that we have grown at such an accelerated speed, that we've been reactive and not proactive.
Okay, Mr. Fiskus?
Yes, we came here in 2000, and we looked around and we thought Lincoln County's a nice place, and it is. That's why we chose it. And about the same time we were looking around, Dr. Horton, Mr. Ryan, and Mr. Lenars, and Mr. Shea were looking around. And they saw Lincoln County in Denver, and they said, whoopee, we're gonna make a fortune here. And they have taken, by the time 2025 and all their permits are done, $3 billion. They have taken $3 billion out of Lincoln County, mainly Denver. That's and they're doing 25% profit. So that's $175 million. That's $30,000 for every family in Lincoln County. And they never said thank you. Have you gotten a thank you note from them? We're talking about $1 million here and $1 million there. They're doing $3 billion. That's economic development. But they're the ones that got it. They didn't hire any contractors in Denver. They didn't use copper from the Denver copper mine. And they didn't use sheetrock from the Denver sheetrock factory. And they left. And they didn't use any of the suppliers either. So that money's gone. And right now, it's at this very moment,
Okay, Mr. Roach, you'll have...
we here are drinking $2 chuck.
You'll have the final say on this.
And they are drinking $100 wine wherever they're in Zurich or Bermuda, and they're laughing at Denver. And they're saying, is that Denver, Colorado? Or is that Denver, Pennsylvania? Oh, Denver, South Carolina. Well, the other guy says, oh, it's Denver, North Carolina. They're laughing at us. They're calling us rubes. You go on their websites, and that's what they say. Just go on it. It's a sobering moment.
Okay, Mr. Oakes, I'm going to give you the last statement
To
on
get
this.
back on topic, Lincoln Economic Development does a great job. I can't give any details, but there are 2 more industrial parks in their plans. When we did the land use plan over again about 2.5 years ago, they were consulted in great detail about where things should be set up. Land use areas that are in the plan are designated for future industrial. And I think there's a pretty good job there of getting us ready for the next 10 years worth of industrial growth. I think they've done an excellent job.
Wayne, I'd like to say something on this too, don't mind.
Okay, I'll give you, and I think Mr. Mitchell had his hand up too. I'll give each of you a chance to keep it brief if you will.
When you talk about economic development, I was at a meeting today. One of the questions I asked, why is a lot of these corporations are moving to South Carolina, not to North Carolina? And one other reason I was looking at, Charlotte area is growing rapidly. Lincoln County is a really ideal spot for large corporations and big corporations. I just noticed today that Amazon, how it's expanded on the west end of Charlotte down there, as you cross the river bridge from Gaston County into Charlotte area there. And it's expanding on that old business park in there, the old area it is. But this area right here has a great opportunity in roads, run North Carolina to be expand for heavy industrial and big industrial. But what we gotta decide, what kind of industry we want, and where we're gonna put it at. That's the main thing, because once the plant set down, the first thing you look at, they're gonna invest millions and millions of dollars. And most of the time they're gonna invest in this, it's in people working there, personnel, and how they get people to move into the area, which Lincoln County has got a good way of drawing people in now. No big deal about that part. I see it grow rapidly. All right. But one other thing is these big corporations, like I say, they invest millions and they're looking for ideal area and they high-paying jobs. It just all depends on what kind of business we want here, what kind of corporations we want in this area. But for the impact of Lincoln County growing in that growing area Charlotte is right now, Lincoln is going to grow rapidly. What we're going to have to do is look at how Lincoln is going to grow in the near future. Because I've got a feeling that a lot of people here have moved from other big areas throughout the United States. They've been moved around areas, LA and all. And as y'all see, these cities, how they grow rapidly. And that's what the big fear is right now. And Mr. Bean, he's right down the shore, he's got a big problem on his hand in the future because of rapid growth. But this main thing is, we need them industrial here to create jobs and bring in youth in the area right here.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Mitchell as the last on this subject.
I'll try to keep this very brief. Economic development is driven on the infrastructure. You gotta have water and sewer. Lincoln County is very limited to where that is, so that limits at this point in time where that can be. We can go out and look and see properties wherever, whatever, but if it don't have water and sewer, they're not gonna wanna locate there. Very simple. Infrastructure has to be there for them to cut. But the low tax rate attracts businesses. Schools, good schools. People want a business and their workers to be in an environment where the school system's good to make the workers happy when they're here. Crime rate. Got to keep the crime rate down in Lincoln County, and that makes it attractive to these developers of large businesses to come to Lincoln County. But the infrastructure is the main driven part, and you can look all over Lincoln County, but there's only certain areas now that can be put. So for order for the infrastructure to be put in, that takes money. But at this point in time, we're limited, and we'll have to look farther down the road where maybe the infrastructure needs to be put ahead of time so we can attract those businesses.
Okay, on another subject, Facebook is full of Democrats and Republicans bashing each other and calling each other names. But I've noticed in this race for Lincoln County Commissioner, and all of you are Republican candidates, that there has probably been more, shall we call it mudslinging, than there has been in many other campaigns. Mr. Oates, you were the subject of a full-page ad in the Denver paper, which also ran on our website, that bashed you over one of your campaign promises or statements that you have been defending taxpayers since 2006. A former county commissioner, Mr. Terry Brotherton, is the one who paid for that ad. Mr. Mitchell, you, I think, picked up the signs that someone had put up, they didn't have their name on them, in eastern Lincoln County that had your name and a big circle with a cross over it, no, that were put up in that area. Would either of you gentlemen or anyone else care to comment on these?
You want to go first, Carol?
Go ahead. You first.
So, my track record on defending taxpayers goes back to 2006 when I, at the behest of some people who lived in a development on King Wilkinson Road, wanted their help in stopping a landfill that was proposed to go right next door. And I discovered problems in the paperwork and got an injunction in court basically delaying the hearing on that. And that hearing was then delayed after December, first meeting in December, which meant that a new slate of commissioners was going to hear it. And so that landfill proposal went away. A couple of years later, when the rescue squad in East Lincoln was told by the county that their services were no longer required, they then obviously decided to disband. But their proposal was to send their cash and their equipment to Gaston County and to take their building and rent it out. A lot of people joined me in objecting to that problem in the sense that they were getting $50,000 a year county money and a lot of money in local donations to run that rescue squad. Now, the rescue squad employees themselves were great people, but the board was wanting to do these weird things with the money, so I filed a lawsuit to basically say, no, you gotta keep it here. When they came to me and said, how do we fix this? I said, go talk to the county commissioners and get an agreement, and when you have an agreement with them, I'll drop the lawsuit. And so that's what happened. They went to the county commissioners, they sat down and the county commissioners negotiated with them, and the end result was that the equipment got dispersed amongst the local fire and safety people in Lincoln County. The significant cash balance that was there was transferred to the Rotary Foundation. The county got that land that's now the Rescue Squad Park, which was originally purchased for a school and turned out to be not flat enough to build on. The county put that towards that plan. The Rotary then raised $1.5 million to grade and finish that. So now we have a great park there. And I think that's an example of the sort of thing that can be done. And so basically I've been out there trying to help the individual taxpayers in making their life better. While I was in the county commission, I managed to get the housing density in East Lincoln reduced from what the UDO called upwards of 3 to 4 units per acre, which the planning zoning director said meant essentially unlimited. But I managed to get that changed down to just 2 units per acre. And so in that respect, I managed to reduce somewhat the amount of new construction. You can't stop new people coming in and buying houses and doing developments. But if you can make the density lower, then you can get some better improvements. As part of the 4 years that I was on the county commission, I was the prime person probably negotiating with the developers. In that time, I got about $1.5 million worth of money, cash, upfront in the county's treasury to do road projects. And most of those require DOT approval, DOT plans, DOT projects. But there's $288,000 for Will Proctor campground improvement, $300,000 towards the New 16 Optimist Club project, which the DOT is saying they're going to do this summer. A couple of developments were given additional density in return for concessions. For example, one developer gave us an 18-acre school site down in the Commons Ford area, so that if the school system ever needs another school in that area, and that's where they said they wanted it, there's a piece of land sitting there waiting for them. Another developer gave us 17 acres of pristine forest land and turned it over to the Catawba Lands Conservatory. So those are the kinds of things that I've been getting done.
In fairness to Mr. Brotherton, he also pointed out in his ad that you and several other persons were the ones who proposed incorporating Denver, and that that proposal would have included an additional city tax in addition to county taxes, and that the group basically was naming themselves as the city council in favor of the new town of Denver.
That's true. I was part of that plan, and that's a reaction to the road situation in East Lincoln. It turns out that towns can get significant money from the state and a little bit from the feds for roads if you're a town, which counties can't get. And it turns out that the tax rate of 7 cents would have turned into another 3.5 or 4 cents worth of money coming in from outside. So you would have had a lot of money to be able to go solve the road problems in a big way over the next 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
So given that that turned out to be too much of a big bite for people to swallow, we basically dropped that idea. That's been dead for 1.5 years, maybe. And so now the plan is we're gonna try and get the county to do a little bit of road construction. There's a transportation fund that I got started. It's had $1 million in it until we did the mobility study. And so you can do a bunch of little Band-Aid projects to improve things. And that's all part of that same thing. It's all about getting better roads.
On a very related subject to that, you mentioned roads in particular. You have signs, campaign signs, which you put up or had put up, that say widen this road. There's
Yes.
one on Highway 16, well, there's probably several, but I know there's one right at the Lincoln Charter School. Another place where there are is on St. James Church Road, right adjacent to East Lincoln High School. How do you propose to get those roads widened, since the state is the one who makes the decision on road projects?
Well, it's not any different than a developer coming to the state DOT, which is approved by the local office either here or in Shelby, to do turn lanes. 3 of those 4 projects that I talk about are essentially just longer turn lanes into the schools. In general, we own the land, or the school system does, and so it's not a problem about buying a lot of land. I put all the details of this on my website, by the way, likemartinoaks.com, and you can go find out. The 3 schools, the Catawba Springs, St. James, and Rock Springs are basically just long turn lanes. And that's all you need to do. At St. James, there's room inside the school property to put a big parking lot. And all that does is basically take the people off of parking on the side of the road going into the school and backing things up all the way to the intersections and moving them into the turn lanes and onto the school property. None of those projects cost more than $200,000 or $300,000. The county's got $38 million in savings. So that's a small price to pay for that. The bigger project is the charter school. Now, DOT has a plan to widen that road to 4 lanes in the next 5 or 8 years. And so they're gonna go buy the land and widen it to 4 lanes. So my proposal is basically for the county to take a couple $1 million, buy all that land now that DOT wants someday, and then add 1 lane to 16 in that area. And clearly this needs DOT approval to do, but that's not any worse than the intersection at Ingleside Farm Road and 73 that got done. Just another project can be done fairly quickly. And once you add 1 lane, which would be a southbound lane, so you'd have 2 southbound lanes. One is really a big long turn lane for the charter school, which should have been done when the charter school went in. At some point when DOT comes along and says, okay, we're ready to 4-lane it, then the county gets to sell back that land that we bought earlier and get most of our money back, I believe. And so those are not tough projects. That's maybe total $3 million.
All right, now let me go to Mr. Mitchell and sort of reversing, going back to the other subject again, sir. The signs that have been put up related to you, the negative signs.
Martin covered a lot of ground there. Can I start and then come back to the sign deal?
Okay.
Martin was talking about, when your sign says defending taxpayer money. We're not going to mention how much taxpayer money was spent when you sued the county. A lot of you may not know that, but that did happen. Incorporation. You talk about doing 17 cents on tax rate for doing incorporation. It's not going to happen. Totally against that. The people of Denver, that area, does not need any more tax burden upon them. Now, mud. Sandy mud is not as muddy as red mud. And talking about the signs, I wish I knew who made those, because I'd like to have some more made, because they want them for collector's items. With my name on there with that. But if I knew who made them, I would do it. I'd like to have some more made, because I got a lot of people want them. And the fact that that I felt like it was a target at me, almost makes me feel like, not to any such degree, but how Trump is targeted. So I decided to target Carolina Mitchell and Lincoln County. But that's fine. I'm tough enough to accept that and go on about it and fine with it. It was a good looking sign. I wish they'd make the red just a little bit rarer, but they didn't quite do that. But it looked good. And I had a lot of comments and people talking about it. Good advertising.
I'd like to...
The mudslinger and what did I leave out? Man.
I
I
think,
think I got all that, and you know, you mentioned Democrats, mudslinging. Folks, let me tell you, I'm going off beat here a little bit, but those candidates that run for president of the United States, we got serious problems on the Democrat side.
okay,
So we need to make sure we get out and make Donald Trump next president, so let's go next something else.
that's not the race we're here to discuss
The,
tonight. Let me go first, Mr.
Wait a minute, I'd like to throw something in there. Politics makes strange bedfellows. And whenever I saw Terry Brotherton's ad, I said to Terry, why didn't you put my ad in there? They spelled the name right, everybody saw it, and they know if they'd seen it, they'd say Glenn Fiskus is being attacked by Terry Brotherton or something like that. And then I've congratulated Carol. I know he's a smart politician, but I didn't know he was that smart. Stop and think about how many votes he's gained by putting those signs out.
Actually, I do know for a fact that he went and pulled them up. I do know that.
We only need 3 or 4 days, that's the whole point. You make your point.
All right, we're going to close that subject. I'm going to another one. And this one I'm going to Kathy Davis first on, but I want comments from the others as well. This comes from the audience, so I cannot confirm the factual information of it. I'm going to read it just as it was given to me. In 2018, Lincoln County Schools ranked 115 out of 115 when you combine local, state, and federal funding. As a county, Lincoln County ranks number 84 out of 115 when it comes to local funding. What is your plan to move Lincoln County out of the bottom half in rank in education funding?
Well, again, that's conversations that we have to have, well,
Please turn it back.
okay. Again, that's conversations that we have to have with our commissioners because they're the ones that control that purse string for local dollars. And it is true, we rank 115 out of 115 school districts for per pupil expenditures. State funding, we're 107. Federal, we're 106, and locally, we're 92. So it's something that, you know, the commissioners are aware of. They're helping to improve that number. And, you know, I think it's commendable on behalf of the entire school system that they've been able to hold a ranking in the top 25 and be number 11 this year in the grade level proficiency when you look at our funding sources. Now I want to go back because I'd raised my hand earlier about the mudslinging. I want to address something that was on your Facebook page yesterday.
Okay.
On the Lincoln Herald's Facebook page. I have an ad that ran on there, and right beneath that ad yesterday morning, somebody was kind enough to remind me that I had been arrested for second-degree trespassing in 2011. It was just after I had been sworn in as a school board member, and in fact, I didn't find out that there was a warrant for my arrest until I was at the Nutcracker performance of that the Lincoln Cultural Center was holding at the Citizen Center, and I got a text from a friend that said I was on the Sheriff's Department website. Yeah, I have a few trolls too, they're friends, but and found a warrant for your arrest, and so I called around at the Sheriff's Department, got the information, and yes, I indeed had a warrant out. I called Rob Brown, who referred me to Tom Pomeroy. I turned myself in that Saturday morning and went through the process. But I wanted to explain because as far as the mudslinging goes, I don't know the person who posted it, went to the Facebook page. They have no common friends. Nobody knew the person, so I don't know that it's a real Facebook page. However, I will address it with you all, and you can look and see if you know that person. If you do, you can let them know, because I posted my cell phone number and I haven't heard from anybody. But I was called by a young lady who was in a group home in Gaston County. I had been working with DSS and this family for quite some time, knew her. She had spent the night in my home several times. And she said that the Christmas tree that they were putting up was falling apart. Did I have another one that they could have? I said, actually, I have a 7.5-foot tree, pre-lit tree that I'd be happy to bring, but I have to speak to your counselor. Spoke with the counselor said, what time will you be bringing it? I told her, brought it down. 2 of the girls came out, counselor opened the door, took the Christmas tree, and then they asked if I could go get them some dinner. So I did, and got the dinner. Later, the family, the adopted mother of the child found out that I had been at the group home and raised such a fuss with the group home managers that they felt like their only recourse after talking to legal counsel was to serve a warrant against me for second-degree trespassing. So, $1,200 later, expensive Christmas tree, right? In mediation, the charges were dismissed and expunged. But I just wanted to explain that because many of you may have seen it. And to be honest with you, if that child asked me again, I'd probably do it all over.
Okay, now back to the subject of education.
Yeah.
Which other commissioner, Mr. Oaks?
I think the school system has to be commended for finishing 11th with the funding that they get. It kind of just, though, proves that throwing money at the problem doesn't solve the problem. And so very careful attention needs to be paid to where the money goes. Well, I was in the commission, and for years before that, and I think since then, there's been sort of a policy of gradually raising the teacher supplement. Is it currently 7.5%? Anyway, the state gives the teachers salaries, and the county adds 7.5%, I think, at the moment. And generally, it's been added to 7.25 point every year, and that's an attempt to get people up to a higher grade. We're fairly comparable with all the surrounding counties, except for Mecklenburg, which is up around 22%. And we're not going to have a hope ever for being able to match them.
Okay, Mr. Holder?
I was just gonna echo the comments there. I mean, I think it's commendable. You know, hey, if you can do it on less money, you do a good job. Good job. Keep
Well,
doing it.
the question was, if I may, I'll go back to the original question. What is your plan to move Lincoln County out of the bottom half in education funding?
I think you're putting what the results are in front of the money here. So the real deal here is, let's focus on what's most important, which is what's the school ranking? How are we doing with the children? So I would argue that as long as we're performing above what we should be, maybe we're doing the right thing with the money. So you may not necessarily need more funding.
Okay, anyone else?
Yes, I was standing on the street there, and a couple came down with a couple kids, and they just moved into the neighborhood. And they said to me, what's wrong with the schools in Lincoln County? And I was under the impression, because the people that other neighbors said that the schools were good. So apparently there's a problem of perception of whether they're good or bad, and I would assume that, like anything else, who's ever the head of the operation, maybe we need to turn over there and have a little bit higher standards from that person. I don't know, but it doesn't seem to be a unanimous decision that our schools are up to par.
Okay, I'm going to, I had said we would try to be out of here by 8 o'clock. It's already 10 after 8. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I want each of you at this point, somebody gave me this question. I think it's a very valid question. What do you see that needs to be done? And this person wrote differently. And I don't know necessarily differently, because if you're on the county commission currently, you might not think anything different. But what do you see that needs to be done to improve Lincoln County? What would make you a better candidate than some of the other folks? Because we can choose 3. What would make you one of the choices? And we're going to go in the reverse order of what we did where we started. We're going to start with Mr. Holder first.
I think just what makes me better is, or the right choice here, or one of the right choices here, I'll put it that way to be politically correct, if you want to use that. I've got a lot of experience within the private sector. That private sector experience, especially focused around economic development, provides me some insight, or has provided me some insight over my career to understand how local government, state government, and even federal government can work together in an efficient manner, in a manner that's not wasting dollars, not spending more money than we should be, but ultimately how we can work together to efficiently keep the county on track, and build a better future for Lincoln County.
Mr. Mull?
As I stated in my opening remarks, I'm quite pleased with how the Board of Commissioners have handled our tax dollars, and I'm pleased with basically the entire county employee system. I love the Sheriff's Department. They're doing an awesome job. One thing that'll make me different that I don't think is represented on the board is that I am going to be that person that will be totally acceptable, someone you can come to, express your problems, and I'm going to be an advocate for the veterans and the seniors in this community.
Okay. Mr. Rhodes?
As I said earlier, I'm a financial analyst, and I believe that while I was on the county commission, we did a pretty good job. A lot of construction projects got started. We started a salary study for the employees in order to get our employees back up to comparable salaries to the nearest counties. And that's a problem, because if you're losing your third-year EMTs to Catawba County and Gaston County, and you're replacing them with trainees, you've got a problem. You'd rather have your EMTs be 8-year people. And so the salary levels were raised drastically, and part of the recent tax increase was caused by that, which is, I think, a good thing. But I'm a financial analyst, and I think we need a lot of that on the board. And the other half that I have bring to the board is I think outside the box a lot. I think about how to solve problems like widen these roads. All of those kinds of things I think very carefully on and bring new solutions to. Not that everybody would always agree with them, but I have a lot of new ideas, and I have a lot more to give. Thank you.
Ms. McCall?
I think I know how to get things done. I don't mean for that to sound arrogant, because I'm not necessarily the smartest person in the room, but I do a whole lot of research, and I'm good at research. That's the truth. I don't know how to do everything, but I don't mind getting the education that I need to do it. Now, I get beat up a whole lot for getting education from my fellow Republicans, and that's the truth. I spent $6,500 per year in 3 years representing you all, as well as getting classes from UNC School of Government and, NCACC and things that has helped me be a better commissioner for you all. And if that offends you, I'm terribly sorry, but it made me a good commissioner. And I've done the very best that I can, and I give it my all. When I didn't know how to make this county be a no-kill county for our animal services, I used my own money, and I called Austin, Texas, Pets Alive, and I purchased every piece of material that they could give me. I had it all sent to me, and I read every bit of it. Well, I created an ad hoc group where I handpicked the people in this county who had worked at other no-kill facilities in the United States. All I knew was who had done it. Well, we are county-led shelter. Those folks had worked at maybe ASPCA or, other facilities, not necessarily a county-led shelter. But we were endeavoring something different. So, the way that you got there was you had to do 90% or greater live release rate for both cats and dogs separately for 12 months consecutively. We got so many months into it, and we got a bunch of cats in that was sick. And those cats had to be put down. I got a call on vacation. My husband and I were on vacation, and my executive director, animal services executive director, Hannah Beaver, was squalling. I said, calm down, we'll start over. It's going to be okay. So we started back over. It took us 16 months total to get there, and we got the certification. Now, Hannah and one other girl went to Pets Alive in Austin, Texas, and learned. And then they wrote grants for other members to go and learn, so they got to go free. Well, Hannah started writing grants, and she got a Petco grant for $175,000. And that started TNR, which is trap, neuter, and return cats. Because you know, cats just reproduce out there in the wild. Then she wrote another grant for Maddie's Fund for $5,000. And she just wrote a grant for Rachel Ray for $40,000. So I didn't know how to do that. I had to learn. I'm not saying that I'm the best thing in the world, but I'm saying I do learn how to do it. And my education, I've got a whole lot of classes behind me, and I'm not ashamed of doing that to make me a better commissioner. And I'll do it again. If I don't know anything about it, I'll do it for you. So I really hope that you'll put your trust and your faith in me. I promise you that I'll do the very best that I can, once again, and I'll work it like a full-time job. I'd appreciate your vote.
Mr. Fiskus.
Yes, I think I represent a lot of people that aren't being heard in Lincoln County, probably over 50%. And we've been accused of being whiners. And that's why I brought the wine in. Whenever you have wine, you gotta have cheese. And I have a whole story about that, but I won't go into that. What has happened here tonight is we've heard mainly questions from the moderator and answers from the board. I would rather have a session where you ask the questions. You let us know what your concerns were. I'd rather have that interface, that back and forth where we actually talk about real things. I alluded to an agenda that some of the board members might have, and one of the candidates immediately jumped up and said there was no agenda. Well, that proves the point that there is an agenda. So, as the only member or only candidate here, I have no conflict of interest. I'm not related to anybody that's an official, has a job with the county, is related to somebody else's second cousin, and have some ulterior motive that isn't what's best for you, citizens of Lincoln County. I'm the one that has no conflict of interest, and I'm going to work and solve your problems, not my problems.
Ms. Davis?
I've got to read some of mine. I'm not as eloquent at coming off the cuff, and I want to make sure that I don't leave anything out. But I'd like to continue the focus on economic growth and partner with LEDA. I think that they do a fabulous job, and they're a tremendous asset to our community. And continue business recruitment with a focus on a competitive living wage. Continue the support of law enforcement and other public service entities that strengthen and support our citizens, particularly the most vulnerable, our aged and our youth, as well as the entities, our nonprofit organizations that fill in the gaps that are not funded by our local governments. I'd like to continue to keep the lines of communication open between commissioners and the Board of Education so that we can together work to create and ensure that the best possible learning environment for all of our children needs are met. The continued focus on quality of life elements such as parks, recreation, as well as arts and culture. I don't pretend to know everything. I did find a quote from Maya Angelou that I think kind of sums up what I'm willing to do. I will do my very best and until I know better. And then when I know better, I'll do better. Thank you, and I would appreciate your vote and your consideration.
Mr. Avery?
Well, I believe in people out here, and they are the best source of any kind of problems you have to create in Lincoln County to resolve here. You always see what I ever said based on people who live here. I've been trained not to talk over 2 minutes anyway. All my professors trained me over 2 minutes and you out here. But basically in the county itself, like I say quite a few times, everything in the county right here, I've run off today openly to talk to some of the people in the DOT and DMV here to about widen the road problem y'all have here in the county. I hadn't had the attitude to get to it today. They kind of kept us away from that part. But now, anything here in North Carolina, anything the county commission does, I will tell you this part, is if you look at it, it's based upon laws. They cannot do anything in this county. There's 818 things that you're looking up here at the legislative building they can do, but everything's covered by law. The main thing is doing what you're doing before you go in there, because I see a lot of commissioners that went in there over the years that just left there after 4 years, disgusted on it. But again, I get back to what I tell them, to solve all the problems in the county, I will get back to the district and again, to you, and resolve the issues that y'all out here. Now, it's gonna take y'all on committees right here, and oversight committees, like on the school budget, it's gonna take y'all in these districts right here, oversight committees look into this right here. And any other thing the county does, oversight committees is gonna resolve a lot of issues. Thank you.
And Mr. Mitchell.
Wayne, did you ask a question, or is this a closing statement session?
Actually, this is a closing statement, you might say. The question, if you will, is what exactly would you do, and this person wrote it as differently, but obviously you're on the commission, so you might not do anything differently. What would make you a good choice for one of the three to be elected?
Okay. Let me say one thing, is 16 years experience, soon to be on the Board of Commissioners. I'll admit one thing. I have not done everything perfectly, nor do I think any of the board members that have been on the Board of Commissioners can say that they've done everything perfect. The very first thing you learn when you come on the Board of Commissioners is what you cannot do. I think for those of you that's in the audience and want to serve on the Board of Commissioners, understand that. It's very disheartening or make you feel bad that you want to do this, and you find out you cannot do that. But I found that out in a real hurry. What I want to do is make sure we continue to fund economic development so we can get and do these industries in here so we can lessen the tax burden on the landowners and homeowners in Lincoln County. There's a lot of moving parts to that. A lot of things I talked about earlier, infrastructure, getting here where it's going to be, what, that kind of thing. Good schools, low tax rates. It's a working puzzle for me, if I may say that. But it's something that has to be done and has to continue to be done. And our economic people that we have now has done a great job, and the ones in the past has done a great job. I want to continue to make sure that happens. But we need to make sure we keep the tax rates low for citizens. I need less government in my life. I don't need more regulations. I don't need more layers laid upon me. I've got enough of that. I don't need more of that. We need to make sure public safety is out there. We, as citizens of Lincoln County, when we go to bed at night, and we lay down, that we feel comfortable, and I don't have to worry about somebody coming on me and doing something they shouldn't be doing, even though we have some of that. But with the amount of people in Lincoln County, and the crime rate in Lincoln County is very low, and we want to make sure we continue to do that. Again, I'll say, I've not done anything perfect. I want to commend the board of commissioners that I sit with now. We have progressed. And if I'm elected, we're going to continue to progress and make Lincoln County the very best place that you want to work, live, and play. You know, it's just amazing that Lincoln County must be a very wonderful place to come to. I think it is because I've lived here all my life. I have not known any other place. It undoubtedly is a gem, because look how many people keeps coming even though they got their traffic problems. They keep coming. So it's a great place to live in North Carolina and the United States. As your commissioner, I will do everything I can to make sure that continue happens. I thank you.
Thank you, candidates, for your time tonight. I am sure that there are other issues that we did not address. I hope that we addressed some of the ones that the folks here were interested in hearing about. I would urge you to learn more about the candidates. Some have a website, some have a Facebook page, and I think all of them are reachable by telephone or email, so find out about them and make the choice for who you think will best represent you on the Lincoln County Commission. You can vote early through this Saturday, February 29th at noon. Then you can vote, it's 3 o'clock this week, okay. We've got the times and locations up on our website. In addition to that, let me mention that during early voting, you do not have to vote where you live. You can vote at any one of the 4 locations in the county that you choose to vote. That's right, it's 3 locations this year, that's right. I'll get it all right eventually. I don't live in this county, I live in Gaston, we've got 4. The candidates tonight, this forum will be put up on YouTube tomorrow. So we understand that, for example, the Lincoln County Republican women had a meeting down east tonight. So obviously we had some pretty tough competition for audience. But they and anybody else that chooses to see it can see it on YouTube. Sometime tomorrow it will be put up there. I thank you for attending tonight. Be sure to go and vote.